Hey folks, we are here at NG Atlanta, once again talking to April Wensel.
Hello.
Now, you gave a talk about emotional intelligence.
That is true.
And that's not necessarily a thing that developers are known for.
No, it is not. No, it is not. And I definitely was not known for that in the past either.
Oh, really?
No, yeah. I like to start off my talks by talking about how I've been called abrasive in the past because I used to be one of these stereotypical kind of programmer jerks, where I can code and I feel like I'm the best and I'm going to act better than everyone and my ego is the most important thing and all this stuff. That was me, except, other than being a woman, I was the stereotypical kind of like programmer. So I had to learn the benefits involved in actually caring about human beings and actually, being humble and really coming from a place of caring about other people's emotions in a situation, and it actually makes you a better developer.
Yeah, it totally does. In fact, I was talking to somebody, I don't remember who it was, but we were talking about what it takes to be a great developer. And we were also talking about like going through college and all the classes that you take for a computer science degree. My brother is going through a computer science degree, and he asked me if he was going to use any of that stuff. And I was like, well, some of it, and some of it you'll use in interviews to get the job.
True.
And he's like, well, then what's the most important thing that I can learn? And I looked at him and I said, to work with other people.
That is great advice. Great
And,
advice.
I mean, almost every job, well, every programming job I've had, I've had to work with other people.
That's how it goes usually.
Yeah. I was either on a team or I had to work with a client. Yeah. So how do you develop that skill? Because it's not something that, oh, well, I'm just going to go take an emotional intelligence class and...
Well, you might be surprised. So I'm a firm believer in the growth mindset. It's this idea from Carol Dweck that anything that you want to improve, you can, no matter where you're starting off now. Nobody is like a good people person or not. It's not,
Right.
Black and white. And so I think emotional intelligence really just takes practice. So it takes caring and practice. So in my talk, one thing I emphasize is slowing down, because I think when we're trying to like write code and like meet deadlines and get it out and push and like put out fires and we're always like rushing around, we don't step back and think, okay, one, how can I optimize the system? Just slowing down doing that. And two, thinking, okay, what's this other person thinking and feeling? That empathy
Right.
component is just one of the most important pieces of emotional intelligence.
That's really true. And Carol Dweck's book is terrific.
Excellent.
So, yeah, can't say enough good things about it. But yeah, I love the idea of, okay, so we have a growth mindset and we can fix this, right? We can learn to do different. So where do I start? Where do I start recognizing I have this problem? Because everybody manifests this a little bit differently, right?
It's true. So one of the most obvious ways, I think, is really strong negative emotions that people feel. Like you feel frustrated, something irritates you, you're mad at a coworker, or whatever it is, something bothers you. And so in the talk, I made this comparison between your distressing emotions and alerts that may come in, on your pager if you're on call, which now is the metaphorical pager. But
Right.
if you're on call, it's this idea that, so if you're feeling angry, it's like, okay, in those moments, that's when it's most important to say, wait a second, what's really going on here? Am I tired? Am I hungry? Is it something like that? Or has this person somehow challenged or threatened something that's really important to me? So getting in touch with your core values and connecting that to your emotions, because knowing anytime you're really upset, it's because someone's either threatening a basic need or one of your core values. And that's really
Gotcha.
where it comes from.
That's really interesting. And it's not something that you really think about until somebody points it out, at least for me.
It's true. It seems like, oh, it's obvious. It's just talking to people, right? Like some people, I think would dismiss it as, oh, this is just, of course I know how to be a good person. Of course I know how to work with people. I do it every day. That doesn't mean that you're doing it the best way that you could.
Right, absolutely. What about the situations where you just don't know? I mean, sometimes it's, oh yeah, that might have come out wrong and I'm a little bit tired. And sometimes, no idea, right? It's just, out of the blue, somebody seems upset about something you said or did. And how do you pick up on that and realize that, okay, what did I do and how do I make that better?
That's a really good question. So another book recommendation is Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. So I'm a big fan of nonviolent communication. And with it, the focus is on communicating your feelings and your needs, and understanding somebody else's and asking them. So saying, it seems like you're upset. Could you tell me more about that? You know, that sort of thing. I think approaching it from that angle where you really want to understand instead of just saying you're overreacting, like, because you don't know, you know, don't make assumptions. Try to understand. Obviously, this to that person, I like to say this to that person, whatever weird behavior they're doing, if they're acting passive aggressively or whatever, it makes sense in their mind. You know, for some reason in their mind, it makes sense, whatever choice they're making. And so your goal with empathy is to get into their heads a little bit and use your imagination first, but also, you know, try to ask from a place of genuine caring, not judgment or, you know, criticism.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I think a lot of people also just kind of get this idea in their head that, well, if they understood me or I understood them, I mean, some of this stuff takes years.
It does. And that's why growth mindset is so important. And coupled with that, I like the idea of self-compassion. So you don't beat yourself up if you mess up. I mean, the other day, like, I got pretty irritated about something that happened. And I like to try to think that, you know, I can handle my emotions. But I got really, really irritated. And, you know, but the next day I didn't think, oh, I'm a terrible person. I just thought, you know, in the future, here's what I'm going to change to do this better. And it takes a while to even just cultivate that practice. But I think it's really valuable if you can.
Yeah. Well, and I've been married for almost 13 years, and I still get this stuff messed up, right? So, you know, somebody I know really well, somebody who I care deeply about, who cares deeply about me, we still screw this stuff up. And so, yeah, I think it's very important to, rather than say, oh my gosh, you know, I can't believe what a jerk I am. You know, I should have known this after 13 years or working in a job for 2 months every day with the same person, that I should just know this.
Right.
You know, it's okay. Well, let's be constructive about this and make sure that we understand what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you must have some bit of that if you've made it work for 13 years. So congrats.
Yeah. Don't ask me how I deal with my kids. I'm just kidding. My kids. So the other aspect of this is, you know, you said 4 developers or 4 engineers. So does it change when it's the workplace? Does it change when we're software people?
I think it does, in that there's a lot more resistance to it to start. So a lot of what my talk is about is kind of selling people on the idea more than explaining it, because I think the explaining, I did explain it, but that takes time to cultivate. So I got them a starter thing, but I mostly wanted to use the moment to convince people to care about this. Because I think in general, it's like, we work with logic and reason writing code. You know, that's kind of what we do. And sometimes we forget that we're still human beings. We still have those emotions. We're not robots. We're not just perfectly rational creatures. No human is. And we don't check our emotions at the door. They're part of everything. So I think that for engineers in particular, it's important to say, hey, this is important, and kind of get them to realize. And I think using these metaphors that come from engineering, I think can help too. So that's kind of how I go about it. And again, like the fact that I was so resistant to it, I use that as like a starting point, because I think a lot of engineers dismiss this as soft skills. In my talk, I said, you know, don't say soft skills. Like, I don't want to use that term anymore. I don't like it. I think it's associated with weakness and with and kind of pigeonholing it for women, because softness, you know, like the Sears commercial, the softer side of Sears from the 90s or whatever, like it's not a woman thing. It's like a person thing. Right. And so soft skills I don't like. So I proposed catalytic skills, which comes from a talk. Well, it comes from a number of places, but I heard it in a talk from Daniel Goleman, who has the book Emotional Intelligence, tons of books of emotional intelligence. And I think catalytic skills, what he means is you're catalyzing the efforts you're making with your other skills. So you can apply your technical skills more effectively. You can gain new skills more effectively, and you can work with people to combine your skills and use them in the right ways. So catalytic skills I would prefer, much prefer to soft skills. And I think engineers especially talk about hard and soft. And so instead, catalytic has that kind of engineering sound. So I think it might stick.
Yep, absolutely. It reminds me of chemistry, right? Where you put the catalyst in, and that's what gets the process started. All the other ingredients are already there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
So, so if people want to learn more about this stuff, where do they go? I mean, you mentioned some books, but yeah.
Yeah, so I have a website, compassionatecoding.com, where I blog about this stuff all the time. I have some online courses coming up to try to help developers grow in these areas. I have a newsletter where I send out materials related to this stuff. In addition to that, so it's not just a sales pitch, there's also a great website, the Greater Good Science Center at UC Berkeley. Okay. They have this excellent website. If you just Google Greater Good Science Center, UC Berkeley, or use some other search engine, whatever. whatever your preference is. They have articles on applying compassion, mindfulness, all of the stuff in the workplace specifically, in addition to the rest of life. And really, what I like about it and what I think will appeal to engineers is it's all based on research. So they cite a bunch of papers, and it's very much convincing. I mean, personally, I come from a science background as well, of course, but I think sometimes you can benefit from things without it having to be perfectly proven first. It's like you try it in your own life, see if it works. But that said, if you need some convincing, there's research there.
Gotcha. Now, one last question that I have a few friends that they're just very straightforward people, right? And so they're not trying to be rude. I don't know if they would even pick up on this stuff. Their aptitude for this is much lower, I guess, than other people. How do I deal with them, right? Because it's one thing to say, you know what, I'm screwing up and I'm going to do better. And this is going to, I'm going to set up sort of these mental triggers to go, oh, don't do that again. Or, take a breath. But when it's other people and they're, for whatever reason, just coming across as being direct or even rude,
yeah.
How do you deal with that?
So as somebody who both was one of those people and is sometimes very direct and also has to deal with those people, I will say that, one, I've worked with people through the work with compassionate coding on a wide spectrum of emotional intelligence, like their starting point. And I think that everybody can make improvements. And as far as what you can do specifically, one is to have compassion for that person, like you understand, you say that maybe they have a lower aptitude for this. So even just that is like that empathy can help in your interactions, because then you don't take it personally. But also, if it is causing an upset in you, if you have negative feelings, then I would apply the nonviolent communication technique, which would be to say, when you do this action, this is how I feel. This is what I need out of the situation, so I'm requesting that you do this instead, that you phrase it this way, or that you do it this way to help meet my need. And then, the person can say from their perspective, or, they'll respond however they will, and you can do that as long as you have the patience to continue doing that. And then, take a break, right? Like sometimes you just need to walk away, take a walk, and then, deal with it when you're in a better state of mind.
Yep, makes sense. All right, well, I'm going to encourage people to go watch your talk.
Thank you.
And it's compassionatecoding.com.
Compassionatecoding.com.
All right, so go check that out as well. And thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Oh, I have one more item of business. Progress sponsored my trip out here. So
awesome. Kudos to them.
Yeah, I need to say nice things about them. So, and I really do like Kendo UI. So go check it out, kendoui.com. And just thank them for this video content. You kind of get extra at NgATL.